Okay. Welcome, everybody, and good afternoon. Today, I've decided to take over my brother's platform, Dr. Fundi's platform, and I will be hosting him. It is a special weekend, a weekend where we are celebrating his birthday. And some of you may not know, we're also celebrating his 16th wedding anniversary. So he has been in this for a very long time, 16 years, Fuze.
Yes, no, 16 years. It's a good innings.
It is truly is a good innings. You know. It's something that we and the young people should take, and because this institution of marriage, many people refer to it as being a tough institution, but certainly, you know, it's got ways and means that we can manage in it and be successful in it. So I'm taking over this to host my brother, and I will be asking him some questions. I'm not going to be looking at this as an interview. I look at it as a chat, you know, and but we will address a number of issues, but just to talk a little bit about Fundile. Fundile is one of those people that has got a special place, certainly in our family. Like each and every family member, he occupies his own special place. He contributes and he shines within that space. And one of the things that I would say, and I'm sure all of you know, he's somebody who's really, really much loved. Wherever he is, there are certain things that are always there. There's laughter and a lot of fun when he's around. I've often reflected around this and looking at myself, and I thought that maybe I was brought into this family to kind of like balance this this piece, you know. And when they say that you cannot have too much fun, you know, too much of a good thing, it needs to kind of be balanced. So I'm that balancing factor. But jokes aside, he is one of those special people. He's a doctor, as many of you know, but he's also a husband. He is a businessman, and he's also somebody who gives to the community. And we will be discussing and going into detail around each and every one of those areas. So the special focus of today's chat is really three things. It's going to be entrepreneurship, it's going to be about family, and it's going to be about social responsibility. Those are the three things. But it doesn't mean that we are not going to go into other things, as they, you know, we need to let this discussion flow naturally. We have 1.5 hours, and so I would like us to address each one of these things within that 1.5 hours. So with that, Foods, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Teza. Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for agreeing to be on the other side.
Fantastic, fantastic. Listen, so the first question is, many people, and some, or let me say not many people, some group of people often believe that you cannot use the word black and excellence and have all of that in one sentence. You know, it's like those two things just do not connect.
Yeah.
We know that is not true. We know that there is no one group of people that have got a monopoly over excellence. We know all of that. Yeah. But at the same time, there is the same kind of thinking when it comes to medical doctors and the business. You know, it's like those two things are not supposed to connect. And somehow through you, they have connected. Are you an exception, or this assumption that people are holding is something that is nonsense?
Yeah. Okay, so which one do I start with? The excellence part or the second?
Go to the second part. Go to the second part. The first one, we know that it is not true. There's no such a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, Mteto, for that question. Look, I qualified 1989. Yes. Right. That's just about 31 years ago. I qualified as a medical doctor. And up until that point, there were very, very few. In fact, I can't even remember one medical doctor who went into entrepreneurship, continued to be a doctor whilst being an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And in the last 30 years since then, there's been a few people who have combined the two. But what normally happens is that they end up leaving medicine, their primary qualification, and get absorbed in the world of business. Meaning they no longer practice as medical doctors. Sometimes they don't even get to be registered as medical doctors because they no longer see the need to be part of that. Yeah. Now, for me, looking at all of that, initially, the usual thing in our space is you qualify, you do your internship, housemanship, maybe work as a GP for a few years. If you've got more ambitions, you go and specialize and come back and become a specialist, in private practice largely. A few remain in academia. Or others, they just stay as GPs, and that's what they will do. Now, for me, I initially thought maybe I should go the specialization route like every other doctor who has got more ambitions, beyond being a GP. But at the same time, I was not convinced that that is something that will fulfill me. Partly because one grew up in this entrepreneurial environment at home, where from age 5 I was assisting in the shop, after school, holidays, and all of that. And so that entrepreneurial thing, was also burning inside, and I wasn't really getting fulfillment from being a GP. Obviously, being an entrepreneur, as a GP, you're an entrepreneur at a particular level. Yes. So, and I felt if I go and specialize further than the masters that I did in family medicine, I will have a lot of technical knowledge, but I might not be fulfilled. And that's about the time when you had just finished your MBA with a Vets Business School. And, in our private time chatting to you, there was something that was interesting about the world of business. Now, at a higher level than what I knew from home. Yes. You would sit and and talk about this and talk about turnaround of a business, talk about, this and that. But all of those things, they were like, okay, what would happen if I actually mix medicine and business? Yes. I'm not saying swap medicine for business, but actually have both of them. Obviously, that's a challenge to have both of them because, to keep up with what's happening in my primary field of medicine and still be able to deal with the stresses of setting up a business, it's not very easy. So a short answer is there are not many people in Mteto who have managed to successfully combine the two. And so sometimes I say, I struggle to know whether I'm actually a medical doctor or an entrepreneur. I switch the heads depending on the situation. I try to do my best on both of them. And I'm one of the few people in South Africa who actually have managed to do that.
Is it something that you think is linked to South Africa, or is this a phenomena that is in general that's the case? This observation. The reason why I'm asking this question is maybe it's linked to the curricula that we have, where we're not being exposed to some of the courses that are outside of the field. Is it a South Africa thing, or is something that is happening in general?
I would say, generally, let's say the medical profession is a profession that is a bit conservative, risk adverse. You know, we don't really like to take risks. You know, and as much as, I mean, when you were in grade 12 or standard 10, you could have gone to any field. But after the training in medicine, I think it does make us less, to have less appetite to take risks. That's one. Two, the training itself, when it comes to matters of, commercial matters, being exposed to stuff outside of the medical training, accounting, economics, and things like those. There is no exposure to any of that. In fact, during my time, it was taboo to even talk about the fact that you're gonna go to private practice, because it was seen as you are in this noble profession. You are supposed to be concerned with the lives of the people. And once you talk private sector, it means you are selling out. The government has invested so much money in your training subsidies, and now you are selling out and you are just going to line up your pockets. That was the attitude at the time we were training. And so really, by the time you come out with no clue about the world of business, like zero. But the funny thing is that once you come out, from the day you get your qualifications, banks are, they used to line up offering you credit. There was a bank called MLS Bank, Medical Leasing Services Bank, which was part of the now ABSA, and they would just, just on the strength of the certificate, could get any car, even if you can't afford it. I mean, my first car, Jetta 16 valve, I had to pay 850 rands per month with a salary of 1,350. So you can see, that really you were sucked into debt from day one. And once you are in there, then people who are coming to sell you insurance for this, PPS, this, all of these things. Everyone wants a piece of you, right? You go and then start your practice for those who become GPs, and you've got accountants wanting to do your books and everybody. So everybody wants a piece of this thing of yours. And when there's trouble, because some of them would actually not declare properly, your income. And
you end up having some tax issues now.
SARS comes and audits that audit firm, that firm of accountants. And I remember when I was in PE, the firm that used to do my books was audited, and they found that they were sort of cooking the books. And that firm was very popular with doctors, So the net effect was that 3 years down the line, I had this huge tax bill, because when he was declaring and your VAT returns, I didn't have a way of checking if he was doing the right thing.
And you cannot blame the firm now. The SARS looks to you because you are the taxpayer.
In fact, when he was approached by SARS, he says, no, but this is what the doctor gave me. So he left all the trouble with me. And so SARS comes and they hit you with penalties and then interest and everything. And so a number of doctors worked in PE in the early 90s or during the 90s. they ended up with huge tax problems. So what I'm trying to show is that the medical school did at the time not prepare us for the real world to an extent that I wrote, I think in the early 2000s on the South African Medical Journal, when the editor was still Professor Ngayana. I wrote to say medical schools need to look, to produce products that are aligned to the needs of the market. And one of the things I said, in final year, they should introduce basic accounting, basic economics, and other, basic marketing. Because at the end of the day, to set up your practice, you must know your 4 Ps or 8 Ps. You must know the difference between an income statement, and a balance sheet. You must know the difference between a profit and a turnover. And guys would go and buy huge mansions based on turnover, not necessarily based on profit. And the next minute, when things don't go right, then they are in trouble. So, but one can say that was the problem. I'm glad, though, I heard about a few months ago that at the University of Natal, they have started introducing some of these courses for final year students, which I think is long overdue. Because whether you go into GP or you go back and study and become a specialist, or you carry on, do masters in public health and become a chief director in some department, you need to know how to deal with matters of finance. Otherwise we'll be like some gentleman who was on the State Capture Commission yesterday, who was just pushing everything to the head of department, So yeah,
that's an interesting thought. That example we've just made now. I mean, here is a gentleman who is proudly saying that he's not corrupt, but he is for sure he knows that he is incompetent. I mean, he's proud to be incompetent, but at least the good thing is that he's not corrupt. I mean, to me, both of those things are bad things.
Well, they talk about unconscious incompetence, and conscious, and conscious incompetence, and then all the way up. So I think he would fit in within the unconscious incompetence part of it, meaning not conscious of his incompetence. So it was okay. Yeah.
By the way, I think our education here in South Africa it needs to be changed, because this issue that we are talking about is not limited to the medical profession. When I look at as us as engineers, we come out of that environment. All we know are things, we hardly know how to manage people. And when in reality we're going to be dealing with people, we're also going to be dealing with finances. So hence it becomes critical for people who are in that profession to go and do an MBA type of a course if you want to be able to have a complete picture of business.
Yes.
Okay, but let's now go. Let's start. Yeah.
Sorry, Mteto. The question you had asked earlier around the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Places like the US, where the support system for people who are trying out new ventures is much better than here. And also, some places like India, places like China, even Brazil, they tend to do better. So quite a number of doctors have managed to become successful entrepreneurs in those environments. But the difference is they've got a better entrepreneurial capital, in those, parts of the world. The environment is much more nurturing, and supportive of people who are starting out new things. But here in South Africa, the environment is not right, and we are risk averse. And so we just stay with what we know and what we, even if we're no longer getting the fulfillment from what we know.
Okay, let's get now, Fundile, let's get to your business, which is PHS, and how did you identify this space? You know, here you are, you've been practicing and have been having your own practice, and now you identify a unique space where you felt that you've got some idea that you can create business around. What drove that? How did you get to that point?
All right. Like I had said earlier, I had initially wanted to specialize, but then I started to learn more about the world of business, you know, after you've done your MBA and stuff like that. And I decided to tell University of Natal, guys, thank you, man, for your dermatology post. I'm actually taking a different direction. I want to move to a certain level of being a business person. And I need to study to have skills so that when I get there, you know, I'm at least not lost in that space. So I remember I came to you and, you know, I wanted to do an MBA in healthcare, and Stellenbosch had a program in that. But because of poor enrollments, they canceled it. So I had to look for an alternative, and I found one with Manchester Business School. That was a 1 year, you know, consolidated program, advanced management program in healthcare, you know. And I remember bringing the curriculum to you and saying, you know, you've just done this thing. Look at this one and tell me if, you know, it's actually, you know, something that you think is valuable. And you gave it a thumbs up. So at the time I was starting that course, I was not really clear about what I wanted to do. One thing I knew, though, was that there was a lot of change in our industry, the healthcare industry. There was a lot of change after Dr. Nkosazana Zuma came in with the new government. And when they came in, there was almost an anti-private sector, you know, sentiment, you know, with a lot of social health kind of, you know, ideas from, you know, places like Cuba and places like those. And there was a lot of closing. There were a lot of regulations that were actually making life difficult to continue in private practice. Whether, you know, we used to dispense medicine, it was becoming a problem, you know, that must be done by pharmacists. And there were a lot of changes. And when you looked at all of those changes at a, you know, short period of time, one thought, you know what, the people who actually were driving this change were people who were largely, I would say, non-healthcare workers, you know, healthcare professionals, you know, lawyers, you know, BCom people, actuaries and stuff. And the medical people were not really, besides the fact that we had a minister of health who was a doctor, but generally in terms of the people who were coming up with policies, implementing stuff, it was largely people who were non-medical, yet it was impacting on healthcare workers. And I felt that, you know, it is important to find a way to be amongst those people who are shaping this industry. You know, but I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the skills, and it meant at that time I must then forego bedside or clinical medicine. So anyway, so when I did the course, by the time I was in the middle of that course, it was like, because you had to do assignments, and I used my practice at the time. You know, like I'm a consultant to my practice. And all of a sudden, I saw so many things that I was doing wrong in my practice after almost 10 years, you know, of being a medical doctor. And, you know, and so I had ideas coming up. You know, every time there was a new module, I was getting ideas, you know, marketing ideas, you know, strategy ideas, you know. But at the end, I thought, you know what, I've got the knowledge now, but I need to use this knowledge within healthcare, because even that course was specializing in healthcare. And so when I then sat and looked for opportunities, you know, to say, where are the opportunities for me now to apply the knowledge that I've just acquired? You know, I thought, okay, going back to practice, or maybe form something bigger than what I had, like group practice. No, that's not what I want to do. Or maybe I become consultant to GPs to help them. No, I don't think that's what I want to do. Corporate, is there an opportunity with employers to help them to manage the health risk? And I thought, no, man, actually, there's an opportunity there, because having been on the other side, being a GP for many years, knowing how many people are abusing sick leave, for example, I identified that as a health risk that employers were not managing appropriately. And after identifying that opportunity, I started zooming in and reading around this problem, and I found that South Africa actually, because this is now post 94, the globalization was starting, and South Africa was not competitive, and one of the issues was the productivity levels of the human capital in South Africa, and I thought, if I come up with solutions around this issue of absenteeism management, especially the unscheduled forms of absenteeism, I think I could be able to add value to employers, save them money, improve their productivity, improve their competitiveness, and also the premiums that maybe they were paying to medical aids, to insurers, by having better utilization of these benefits, they could actually even negotiate lower premiums. So all of those things, I thought, no, man, there's an opportunity. And so I then focused on that opportunity. And at the time, I looked, who is doing this thing? There wasn't anyone really who was doing much about that. It was left as an HR function, and HR is more for record purposes, not really to quantify the problem, track the problem, quantify the problem in terms of rands and cents, and actually have proper management strategies, practices, empowering line managers and stuff like that. So that was my entry, into this space. And because there was no one who was doing it the way I saw it, I felt this is uncontested ground, and I thought employers would jump at this type of solution, but I was not, I was surprised.
You were ahead of your time.
Yes.
Of your time.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's always the case in some of these ideas that it is something that it is required, but unfortunately you are slightly ahead of the time. It doesn't mean that you have to stop doing it. Maybe you just don't have to invest significantly upfront, but just walk with it and make people to appreciate it and start to invest in it. By the way, there's just one thing, Fundi, because now you are coming up with this idea, right? This unique idea that you picked up, which is a great thing. I call that IP. And we've been talking about IP in South Africa over the last 2 weeks. And some people have been alleged that they've been stealing IP. I think you also face something similar around this idea. Maybe not quite stealing, but somehow you nearly lost it.
Yes, Mteto, yes, one of the challenges of starting a business, especially if you are looking to do something big, is to then say, where are my strengths and where are my weaknesses? All right, is there something that I can go and study quickly to close my weaknesses? Or can I get people who are like-minded, who can come in and actually close that gap, and over time, I then, acquire that knowledge and skills. So at the time then, when I was clear about the business concept, the next thing was I need partners, because the people I was going to compete with were big divisions of big companies like Alexander Forbes, Old Mutual, Momentum, Metropolitan, those kind of organizations. And I felt if I need to take on these big guys, I think I need a strong team. So I initially struggled to find like-minded medical people. And eventually I found one and two other people who were more business-minded, non-medical people. And so we joined forces, we workshopped this thing, we improved the concept to a point where it was actually sellable.
Yes.
Because the next step was raising funds.
Yeah.
Now if I'm going to compete with these guys, I need to raise funds, and it can't be small change. So as one was looking to raise funds, then it became clear that the potential funders, and I'm not talking the banks, because they want collateral, and I didn't have no collateral at the time. So the concept itself needed to be so good that somebody else with old money wants to invest in it.
Yes.
And so that's what we did. But then the funders said, no. The best you've managed is a small practice. We need you to be partners with people who have actually run big businesses, handled millions and all of that. So I got partners, that's why I got partners. And when we were just about, in fact, when we got the letter from Old Mutual that, okay, we are taking 30% of your equity of your business concept for this amount in considerations. Wow. One of the people who was my mentor, somebody I looked up to, somebody who was my spiritual leader in church, just came on that day. I still remember.
This is a spiritual leader.
This is a spiritual leader, a born-again Christian, somebody South Africa looks up to, okay, in a big way, even today. This person was my elder in church. She was heading an investment arm of the church. And we were all encouraged, if we've got business concepts, go and, discuss it with her so that she can guide you. So when the letter came from, Old Mutual, this person comes and says, she dreamt, God told her that they must take, that is the investment arm of the church, must take 45% of my business. 30% Old Mutual. Now God has instructed this person that they must take 45%. So me and my two partners, we're going to be left with 25% of something that we consider.
And this is your idea.
This is my idea,
and you also got the funding because you drove the funding part.
Yes, I mean, yeah. So anyway, to just not to take too much time on this issue, but this person then told us she's going to be the executive chair of the entity and draw a huge amount of money, as an executive chair. Number two, the three of us as the founder, directors, we must work for 2 years before we can be able to have shares in this thing. All right. And there must just be 5% for staff, that is, who are not the three of us. So that was daylight robbery in the name of God, So, and I obviously said, you know what, God cannot talk to me about a concept and then go and talk to you to take 45% of the concept without talking to me. So, you know what, I am not going to agree to this. And I challenged her, and she told me, you've got a spirit of disobedience. You've got Satan inside of you. I'm anointed, to lead your business, But anyway, the long and short of the story is that I challenged Old Mutual to ask them if they gave this money on the strength of the business concept and the team, or because there was this one person, who was a known accountant and business leader, So, but anyway, to cut a long story short, she failed, in that endeavor, even after assembling a new team to go and demand the same thing. But what I learned out of that was that sometimes the people we look up to, to mentor us, to coach us, some of them are unprincipled, some of them have got no integrity, and in fact, they will not hesitate to use religion to actually demonstrate their greed. And so that was my IP that nearly, disappeared, from somebody that I really looked up to.
Yeah. And you have grown the business. And what is the size of the business now? Briefly, what's the size in terms of the people, a number of people?
Well, at this moment,
Yeah.
We are about 60 full-time
Yes.
staff members. 60,
Yes.
largely healthcare professionals,
Mhm.
doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, psychologists, social workers,
Mhm.
and some support staff,
Mhm.
who are non-healthcare. But about 7 years ago, 2013, the business employed about 150 full-time employees. It had a national presence in all the provinces, but we hit a serious tsunami, and where we had.
And that is normal. That is normal.
Yes.
If you are running a business, you hit
Yes.
those things. It comes
We
with
hit
the
a
territory.
tsunami
Yeah.
as a result of a prolonged litigation with one of the key clients of ours. And by the time it was resolved in our favor, a year later, the business had lost so much money that we had to restructure the business and actually make it 25% of what it was a year before. And so I had to almost start afresh at the beginning of 2014 to where it is now. So, but one now is a little wiser. In terms of employing people, I look for different employment strategies rather
Yes.
than just having fixed headcount costs. So we use a lot of variable ways of staffing based on the peaks and troughs of the business. So otherwise,
but the unions would not be happy with this approach of yours. No, is it not broken?
Well, I do everything within the law.
Okay.
But one has learned that a business is there to make a profit.
Exactly.
And it is very important that, yes, whilst you want to take care of your employees, but you must always look at the staffing in relation to how the business is performing. And you must be quick to actually adjust when things are not going right. For example, we were hoping that we're going to win the case, and therefore we did not downsize. So we kept those high costs, personnel costs, for almost a year, yet the income was somewhere around 40%.
Yes.
And if it was now, I would not have done that. So the lesson was, as soon as you see that something is not going right in the business, adjust. To not be afraid to actually restructure the business. When opportunities come again, then you can go back and employ those people, but you can't kill the whole business just because your heart is feeling for those who may lose their jobs.
I absolutely agree, Fundi. And we've just gone through something similar in one of our operations within Altron. And this operation, what we do there, we do branding. As you know that if people are working from home, there's less branding that is happening in their companies. And the business model, we go and put printers in the companies and they pay per print. So if employees are not there, nobody's printing, so the income is zero. So we had to make a decision quickly to right size that business to the fact that now it kind of like reduced almost by 50%. So we had to right size it. It's a painful decision to make, but if you don't do that, you're actually risking the entire company.
Exactly.
And these are the things where people are sometimes, when they're managing a business, they're concerned that, hey, what about the people and this? You need to look at the bigger picture to save the company so that it can, if you can pivot it, then you can grow it. If you don't save it, then the whole thing is going to be dead.
Yeah, and in fact, some of the people who took voluntary retrenchment packages, or actually who were forced through the process, of formal retrenchment. A number of them came back once the business was turned around. It took about 18 months to turn around the business, and I was able to employ them back. So right sizing, like you say, is not always a bad thing, if one is looking at the primary interests of the business.
Exactly.
Obviously, those who are losing the jobs at the time that is happening, they may not feel good about it, but they got hefty retrenchment packages, 2 weeks for every year worked, when the government just says 1 week for every year that you've worked. So I was still generous even in that.
And that is very important when one is running a business. To be guided by years is a guide to have that 1 week for every year of service. But at the end of the day, when you are doing this thing, you need to be asking yourself, will I be able to sleep at night? Have I been fair to these employees? Going 2 times what the government is asking for, you get that comfort that, what, I've done the best that I can for these employees.
Yes.
But let's go back to the reason why you went through that challenge. And many people have this belief that customer is always right.
Yes.
And customer is always right. And
Yes.
but here you were deciding to challenge the customer, your customer, and taking your customer to court. What kind of a person does that? Without going to too much detail.
No, I'm not gonna. Yes, I'll manage that. Yeah, I'll manage that. I think there's one thing that one needs to understand. We always say customer is king. You must be customer orientated and all of that. But one must also be mindful of the fact that within the customer, sometimes some stakeholders within the customer may not necessarily, work in the interest of your company. They may sometimes, have alliances with your competitors.
Yes.
And so at times, then you may find a situation where somebody working with your competitor, they plot to take you out, from that particular space. In our situation, in 2009, we almost swept all the opportunities that came our way via that particular, customer. To an extent that the 4 competitors were basically white companies, were not very happy with that. They thought, for Fundi's company to win so much business, it must be because, he's corrupt, he must have bribed somebody, and the selection panels at provincial level are largely black and all of that. So they did not give us credit for being good at what we do. But in fact, they decided, no, it must be because of those things, but they could not advance anything. But next time around, when the whole thing was happening again in 2012, that's when they planned to take us out completely by hook or crook. And so what they did, and I'm going to say this, when you are responding to some of these opportunities, the potential client, which was for us, it was a retender situation. The potential client will look for a list of all your nurses, doctors, physios, OTs, and they want to see if they are qualified and registered with the professional councils. So one of our doctors, an employee, did not, one of our doctors did not pay his dues with the Health Professions Council. Instead, he submitted a fraudulent registration card to our HR to say he's registered. And HR did not scrutinize, they thought he was okay. But when the potential client or our client was doing scrutiny of the, scrutinizing the papers, they found that this guy had not paid his fees for 10 years.
10 years.
For 10 years. So meaning he's been faking this even with previous employers because he was only with us for 18 months. But anyway, the point here then was on the basis of the papers that he submitted, our company was disqualified. And we felt that was wrong to be disqualified as a company because when we wanted reasons, then they came up with some treasury regulations that say if a director of the bidder is involved in fraudulent or criminal activity, then the entity, that is the department, has a right to disqualify. Well and good.
Yeah, but if
it was me, was me as a director, that was fine. But if it's an ordinary employee of the company, that clause does not work. So we then took them on. We went to North Gauteng High Court. We put an interdict to the whole process, and we went for a review. We thought that will take about a month or two, but it took 4 months before it could sit, and another 3 months before the judgment could come out. You know, so by the time the judgment came out, it was almost like a year later. But we were actually found to be right. Now, the issue then is sometimes if you are convinced on a matter of principle, you know, that you are right, and your client is actually not doing things in a fair way, I think you should be able to get the courts to adjudicate on that matter. And if you fail, it's okay. But here, it was the lives of the people at stake, that is our employees, and each one may be supporting 5 people. So you can see how many people are going to be affected. But also for me, 13 years of my sweat, you know, just going down the drain just because somebody is misreading the law, you know. So it's not, you must not be quick to take your client to court, but when you think you've reasoned enough with your client and they are not prepared to be reasonable and actually abide by the prescripts of the law, then I don't think there's anything wrong to actually take them, you know, to court.
We have something similar in Altron right now, where we have taken one of our clients to court. We just believe that they are wrong. And this Supreme Court of Appeal have listened at the case. We are crossing fingers. The reason why I'm asking this question is because many of us are afraid to do these things, when in reality, you know, that's the reason why we've got the courts. You know, we need to be challenging things and make sure that your rights are respected as a service provider. You know, and there's nothing wrong with challenging someone. Looking at this case of yours, Fundile, you interestingly used our sister-in-law who has a legal practice.
Yes.
She is the one who helped you and worked with you to help win this case.
Yes.
And I'm looking at this thing, and people are listening at this. But this whole thing of Fundile is like nepotism. You know, it's using a sister-in-law to go and do this thing. How do you manage something like that? You know.
Yes. Look, you know, obviously at face value, that's what people will think. But I've got a slightly different take when it comes to issues of nepotism.
Yes.
For me, the primary thing is that that company, or you know, that firm of you know that firm was you know, we presented a number of legal firms to the board. All right. And I recused myself from being part of the decision. All right. And the board members within the company then looking at what she was able to offer, actually then gave her a contract. You know, we kept her on a retainer, you know, to help us with a number of, you know, legal issues here, contracts here, and all of that. All right. So she was actually contracted to the company in a way that is transparent, on merit, all right? Not because she was related to me. And one of the things that was attractive to the board was the fact that the agility of her practice, because it was a small practice, you know, because the people who had used before, they would take long to attend to our matters. And we found her quite agile and her legal advice quite solid. So that's one. So, and when we had this matter, you know, as we were still following, we call it PAIA or something, you know, looking for information that informed the decision to disqualify us. We were blindsided by this client, and you know, they know they've got 30 to 60 days, you know, to actually get back to us. So they wanted to just quickly go through the process, go through the provinces, and by the time they answer to us, the whole process is gone. We got wind of it on a Friday, and they were starting on a Monday with provincial, you know, selections. So we needed somebody who was going to dedicate that weekend, prepare the documentation, so that at 8 o'clock on Monday, we could be able to submit papers to the North Gauteng High Court to actually interdict the process that was starting in Cape Town. And of the big firms, you know,
they've never given you that attention.
Exactly.
I can tell you that.
Yeah. So we worked. Sunday night. We literally worked the whole night. You know, we only got out of the office at about 4 a.m. just to go and wash. You know, so that at 7 we meet again and we rush to Pretoria and also deliver the papers to other competitors who were affected by the interdict. So what I'm trying to say is that for me, it's about competence, it's about merit, it's about transparency, you know, and going through the right structures within the organization. And if the board, you know, says thumbs up, then it's okay. However, every year when the auditors come, there's something that says related party transactions. You know, you have to explain why you are using you know, a service provider that is related to you. You know, how was this person procured, and are the interests of the company still, you know, prime, or you just pushing, you know, to your family member. So those are the checks and balances that I think are there to try and deal with these matters. And the deputy chair of our board was actually somebody from Old Mutual, you know, deputy chair and the head of audit. So it went through head of audit, who is independent, and so really for me, it was not an issue.
Fantastic. No, this is great. You know, sometimes we always look to these large enterprises, large companies. We think that they are the answers to all of our challenges as business people, in particular as small companies. And yet we find that you pay all of this, but you're not getting the value that you should be getting. You know, so it's important that we get companies that are agile, that are flexible. You mentioned that one of your competitors actually very large companies, Old Mutual, Alexander Forbes, and when I listen to some of our startup or small businesses here in South Africa, people are always complaining. I'm talking now black business, saying that, hey, we've got all of these large companies that we have to compete against. Can you please, government, come in and help us to break this white monopoly capital so that there can be some space that is created for us? You never did that. You decided to focus on building something that is comparative. And why is that?
Look, Mteto, again, you know, I think it starts from one's self-belief. I don't believe, look, yes, there are historical challenges in terms of, you know, black people access to this and access to that, which was structural as a result of apartheid, and some of the legacy issues are still there. But to us, to me specifically, because I conceived the business, idea. To me, I wanted to take on these companies that had been there for long. I wanted to take them on in terms of quality of what we are going to deliver. The value proposition, the idea that if we save you money, from sick absenteeism abuse, you will also achieve cost savings, and if we can demonstrate these cost savings, you may even reduce your premiums for medical aid and also, for your provident fund or pension fund. We believed that what we had as a solution to the employers was better than anything that anybody could give. So for me, I think we need to be able to do a proper analysis of the market, identify clear gaps, and then understand the competitor landscape, understand the strengths and weaknesses. Because even the big guys, the white monopoly capital has weaknesses. And if you spend time to understand those weaknesses and leverage those, solutions around those things, you can still be able to beat them at their game. And the bigger guys, they take long to change. They are not, they take long to change. But as a entrepreneurial venture, small new entity, quicker decision making, quicker, modification of this and that. You don't need always a board approval, for this and that, as long as you are within, the shareholder agreement, the scope of the business. So for me, it was an issue of, we're good enough. We will show it by beating. And funny thing, our first contract, 6 months into starting the business, we started in January 2000. It took us 6 months to get the first significant client at the post office, South Africa. Post office for South Africa, South African post office, SAPO, And we actually beat all of those, Forbes, we beat them, and the other, entities, NBC, and other big entities at the time that were in the employee benefits space. So for me, sometimes do your homework, do it very well, believe in what you are bringing to the market, be able to be convincing and sell it. And as startups, we were able to beat those people without a track record, only because we came with a value proposition that was based on clear understanding of what the client needed.
Yeah, this is something so important, that what you have just said, Fundi, it is so important. Because we always were looking for support. Is something that is required. All small businesses need support, but they don't need support in creating the value proposition. It is your business. It is your responsibility as the business owner to come up with something unique. Taking that and making that a reality may require funding and something from somewhere else, yes, but you need to have something that is unique. And that is something that is no government can help you with that. So
I agree. I fully agree. But as I was just preparing for this chat, and I was just looking at South Africa, how is it doing in the area of entrepreneurship? Well, in 2017, we're number 2 after Botswana, the rankings. But when you look at us in relation to other, countries with a similar, efficiency-driven economies, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Malaysia, India, Russia, Georgia, South Africa actually fared very badly, when it was compared with those countries, and we are continuing to do badly. And part of it is the fact that the government programs to support entrepreneurship are actually basically useless. Okay. Number two, the primary education, that we offer in our schools, just basic education is really not good. We've got a lot of regulations that are actually constraining, entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is about taking risk by setting up a venture with the hope of making a profit. So now, if you actually, on one side, we are supporting entrepreneurship, but everything else, the paperwork, CIPC, the tax regimes, and also labor laws that are very restrictive. So all of those things, they make South Africa not to do well in entrepreneurship. And so government will continue, entrepreneurs in South Africa will continue to suffer.
Yes.
And demand.
It's a problem. It's a problem, Fundi. It's a problem.
Certain handouts, yeah.
It's a problem because I'm going to generalize, and I know it's wrong to generalize, but a significant number of people that are leading us, their appreciation or understanding of business is limited. So that ends up being reflected in the kind of policies that come out, and also the kind of support. Yes, we're talking about support, but it must be support that is relevant support.
Agreed.
Not just any throwing money. No, it must be something. How are you doing in making sure that there is ease of doing business? It's easy to register companies, things like that. You're talking about having a flexible labor force when we've got such rigid labor laws. So how do we reconcile those things? We do that if we've got leaders and people that have got at least a better appreciation of business. Let's change gears, Fundi. Let's get to the family part.
Okay.
You are married, right?
Yes, I am, and today it's my anniversary.
Okay.
It's our anniversary. Yes.
Yeah. And your wife, many people may not know this, but she is an accountant, and she's somebody. I remember some years ago, she used to be the CFO of another organization, and she is also, I think she does help you here and there within the company. Can you just talk about?
Yes, on the area of finance and financial management, she oversees, our financial accountant, So yes, I rely quite a lot on her inputs when it comes to, that area, because accounting, it's something that is just comes so naturally to her. She loves it so much. So I rely a lot on her expertise in that area.
Okay. What is interesting for me when I look at you and her and also your in-laws, you've got this thing each and every, in every December. You take a drive with your family, you go and spend some time with your in-laws,
Yes.
There's this thing with men who say that, the mothers-in-law, they think of mothers-in-law as people from hell, and here you are, you're taking yourself to hell, what kind of, this is very interesting. I've always observed this thing, and this is something that it's so special about you and your relationship with your in-laws.
All right. If you don't mind, let me just go back a little bit with about her.
Yes.
People will look at Fundile and Fundile's success, but Fundile's success, to a great extent, is actually, as a result of somebody, who doesn't like limelight, somebody who is sitting at home, somebody who assists in the business, but doesn't want to, is not an extrovert like me, and she actually sacrificed her own career to actually spend a lot of time with our daughter, and our son before, Uafika. whilst supporting the business. Now, I'm raising this because sometimes then there is a notion that those, wives who choose to become executive housewives, I'll put it that way, people think that, there's nothing between the ears, and they're just sitting and just waiting for the husband to come back. So, it's a similar situation with you as well. I mean, your wife decided not to continue with her law, career, so that she could provide the best support to your daughter Uanda. So I think we need to be able to acknowledge, those kind of contributions and sacrifices. It was like anybody else, she has her own dreams that she thought she was going to fulfill, but she had to put those on ice to support our daughter and also to support my venture. But to come to your question about the in-laws, you're right. Most guys do not really look forward to spending time with in-laws. But the funny thing in my situation is that I actually have such a great relationship with my in-laws in Bulugwane. And by the way, I'm Xhosa speaking, they are Pedi speaking. Already for other people, that's a problem. The fact that you are a different ethnic group. But for me, it was never an issue. So, but our first meeting, which was not planned, did not go very well. It did not go very well at all, because we were visiting Pulugwane and to see her sister. It was her sister's birthday, the 29th of September.
That was before you guys got married.
Yeah, 1999. So we just went there. We thought we were going to meet at the mall, and then, treat her nicely and then drive back to Joburg. When we get to Petersburg, she's still at home. And me being a person who's very impatient, I said, "No, what? Let's go and pick her up from home. We'll just drive and park a little bit further from the house." As we were doing that, little did we know that the mom was busy doing gardening outside, and she spotted her daughter in this car that she didn't know. And so the one we went to pick up was told, "Tell them to come in." I was wearing a t-shirt, I was wearing Bermuda, the worst way you can present yourself to potential in-laws. And when I went in, we were put at different lounges.
It can only go up from there.
But anyway, to cut a long story short, after all that quizzing, the only thing that saved me was that I became honest about, whilst she said, no, she must study mate at school, and stuff. But I just told the truth that, she's my girlfriend, and do you have plans for her? Yeah. We have big plans, And then where do you come from? Are you from Soweto? No. I'm from Transkei, and my parents are teachers. Oh, those little things, parents, teachers, general dealer at home. Kantinaya, she comes from a family of teachers, general dealer at home. So there was a lot in common. The value system was common. And so all of that just created a situation. After she did some verification about, my background and everything, she sent some people who knew me from Natal to actually give a picture of what kind of person I am. And I passed that verification process. And so since then, we are actually more of friends with both mom and dad. Mom is talkative like me, like my dad. So we never short of something to say. The dad is relatively quiet. So I spend more time with the mother-in-law. And so we really are very good together. And
it's something that really, when one is looking it from far and even close, is something that I truly appreciate, the relationship there. It's a relationship. No. It's like you have inherited another mother. I know our mom is gone, but you've got another mom.
I actually got another mom through her, and I tell her that with my mom gone, you are my mom, and so Fundi Lengwanaga, you're my firstborn. That's how I'm treated there. When they bring food, They, that side, they do things slightly differently compared to the South. She will come with a basin and water and some towel for me to wash the hands and whatever, stuff that doesn't happen here in Joburg, but it happens when you are there, if there's food, I'm the one who must dish up first, even before the man of the house. I mean, so that's like five-star treatment, So all I'm trying to say when I'm Teza, I've got an ideal relationship with my in-laws and also the extended, in-laws, the extended family. So I really have no reason to complain.
I also see a special relationship that you have with your daughter, a very smart individual, very beautiful, very smart, very, very special. What's so special about Ubuhle?
Yo, Mteto, I think I must start by saying, sometimes if you know the kind of person that you were growing up and some of the challenges you used to give to your parents, and then you have a daughter who actually is very independent minded, very stubborn like me, very
She's
clear.
you.
Yeah, so she's basically, me. The only difference is that she's got two X chromosomes and I've got an X and a Y. But honestly, she is a gentle soul. She's very sensitive, but she has got big dreams. And for some reason, she has decided that I'm her, would I call it an idol? Because she's here, she wants to follow the medical route. And she has researched all the universities, top universities in the world. She knows the difference between Harvard Medical School and this one and Stanford, the pros and cons of each, So at grade 8, she already can't wait to get to grade 12 so that she can actually, finish schooling and go and compete at a global level. So I think she's a dreamer. I like that about her. She is fearless. I like that about her. She's also loud like me, and so we actually, drown her mom in the house, who is more on the reserved side. So, but, really, Teza,
she's such a special human being, that one.
she
I mean,
is a special human being, and different to our son Afika, who was more reserved, more of a deep thinker, more of somebody who keeps, to himself, a little bit better now, but they complement each other as well, which is a good thing. And I must also point out that yes, Africa is from my first marriage, and Buhle is from my second marriage. But the way we have grown them up is that there is no difference as to you from the first mom or from the second mom. We have grown them up to know that they are siblings 100%, and on a weekly basis they touch base with each other, and she looks up to him, and so really I'm blessed to have them as my kids.
You are blessed. Yeah. I think you are also blessed to have Lindy as a wife, because without her playing the role that she's playing, Africa would be experiencing something completely different, And Africa now, he's experiencing, there's no difference, He feels at home, and that's how it is. It is largely because of Lindy.
Yeah. I must mention something, Teza, there. I know, just a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Because I'm just highlighting the things that are unusual. All right. After whatever happened, with my first, marriage, one of the upsides of that is that there was a great relationship between my ex and my current, to a point where they would jointly plan and decide when to discipline Africa, how to discipline, and all of those things without me being in the middle. And so that environment, the consistency in terms of the value system, and the principles and all of that is something unique. And I think the message to the people is that if things don't go right, don't give up. Sometimes you could actually have a situation where the second time round things may actually become even better. And in this case, had she not been mature and grounded and not mature, grounded, and insecure, had she been insecure, then there would have been a problem in relating with the ex, and there would have been a problem with Africa. And yet Africa, we made him to know that whatever happens, with your mom, she has bought a new car or whatever, and you are excited about it, share the excitement. Don't come home now and it's like, there's tensions, So basically, when I'm Teza, the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes as parents, if you fail as lovers, it is possible to actually be good co-parents, and not just co-parents as the two of you, including the new person, or persons that come into your lives.
Yeah. So talking about Ubuhle, she is at St. Stephen's, right?
Yes.
One of the observations that I've made is, I may be wrong, but many Black parents, when they are in those environments, they keep their heads down. They don't want to create problems. They may experience things that are not so good, like racism or unfairness, but they're not questioning any of those things because they want to keep peace. But you are not one of those. I've heard many times that you have actually challenged the establishment, which is what should be happening,
Yes.
and
Yes.
questioning things that are unfair. Can you just walk us through one of those cases?
Yeah. Look, Jeza, yes, you are right. I don't, I said it on my show on the 23rd. I said I hate racism. I said I hate tribalism. I said I hate disrespect. Those are things those are like my pet hates. So, what you find in some of these schools, these private schools, I mean, you pay a lot of money, for your child to get good education. You pay a lot. Now, when you then take your child into these kind of schools, and then you find that some of the people within these schools, the teachers, they create an environment where there is subtle racism, where your kids are treated such that they must always be on their toes, worrying, that Mrs. G or Mrs. So-and-so, if she... So basically, kids are terrorized by some of the teachers. I don't like that. So a few times during prep, prep school that is from grade 3 to grade 7, I've gone to challenge those things, sometimes done by the very teachers who are Black within those establishments. They actually, so that they can be loved by the establishment, they actually become unfair on fellow Black kids, which is something that I do not understand. So I took on one of the maths teachers late last year as a result of that, because there was favoritism, and she was basically not doing what I expect of a teacher. And now recently, in grade 8, after the first term, one of the teachers, actually, a geography teacher, she actually put very nasty comments that are not based on fact, that are more subjective, but that are actually discouraging to a child. So I wrote to the principal of the college. I made her aware that I am not happy that a day after the report has come, my child feels useless as a result of the comments that were written by the teacher. So I am challenging that teacher to support each and every statement that she made there. And if indeed it is true, then we will be fine. Because Buhle was crying for most of the day because she felt it was unfair. Every other teacher, she's got her servants, you know, and then somebody says she is unable to do certain things, which clearly was not supported by fact. So, but again, you know, we were granted, you know, a virtual meeting in the middle of COVID. What disappointed me was that the principal of the school, instead of addressing these clear, you know, issues that we were able to demonstrate that they were actually not based on any fact, but the principal tried to keep it hush hush and almost, you know, and guess what? 3 weeks later, the whole issue of racism at Saints came out, you know, and the very teacher that we were complaining about was the one that was in the hashtags by the former students. And so it is important at times that you raise these issues, because if you don't, you know, your child will suffer, and you find that a child is underperforming only because the environment is actually hostile. And the last one was about return to school, you know, during this COVID thing, because they were supposed to return about a month ago. And again, because my child has got a comorbid, you know, situation. So I then, you know, sat down with her mom and her, and we decided, you know what, she's not going to go to school. We will monitor how things are going, and then she will go when we think the risk at least is not so bad. And again, we had to answer to the principal about that, and we educated the principal about the risks associated, you know, with this, and that the indemnity forms that they want us to sign to absolve them of any problems should she catch infection are actually not going to be signed by us, because we don't believe that we must absolve them if we think we can prove negligence. So I think it's important. We're not those kind of parents who are always on the principal or teachers, you know, thingy. But when we have something that we believe it's an injustice, we definitely do take it up.
I've seen this not just in your space, Fundile, in corporate, where a significant number of us as Black people, we just do not challenge things or question things. We walk out of the meetings. That's when we start to talk. But in an environment where we should be engaging and addressing things, we don't. And it just does not help. It does not, because we need to change these things. We can have a CEO at the top who is Black, but things change through the engagement, through people making sure that they are creating the space that is relevant for themselves. You know, not the one person at the top or maybe a few leaders at the top won't change anything, which is the same thing with what you're saying, that, you know, we can be there. If we do not challenge the things that are unfair, we are not going to change the system.
Yeah.
Let me get to,
just one thing, Teza. I think as parents in those environments, do things within the rules, within the law, you know, but assert yourself and hold people to account. We pay too much money to actually just be passive. So I think I'm challenging parents really, you know, and those parents who are sitting in the structures, council and things like those, they also must actually advance the interests of the kids. They must not, you know, sit in those structures and turn a blind eye to injustice. I'm not saying some of them actually, you know, they actually are active and they've been for a long time, but some of them, they feel uncomfortable in challenging the status quo.
Yeah, I remember, now changing gears, 2 years ago, your son came back from the US. It was during the December, it was our summer holidays in December. He came back with his partner. His partner happened to be an Armenian, a white person. And I'm like, okay, how does a parent handle that situation? Here you've got your proudly black son coming back home, and now, and how do you handle that? You know?
Yo, okay. Firstly, I believe that it's important to respect the choice of your child. You know, especially if they are over the age of 18, they are now adults, yes, young adults, and they are dating. You know, you know, because I remember growing up in the Eastern Cape. You know, people who were speaking other languages rather than Xhosa would say Zintlanga, you know, a derogatory name for people who don't speak the same language as yours. And I used to get irritated by that to an extent that at varsity, most of my friends were actually Sotho speaking people. So for me, the issue of language, ethnicity, or tribal thing is not a big issue. What's important is you choose the person that you are happy with. Obviously, being young, one is also mindful that this may end. So, you know, but he must get to experience life. So the challenge, though, was when they come here, because obviously he had to get permission to come down with her. We already knew about her because I'd met her at the graduation ceremony at MIT. But then the question was, when she comes to South Africa now, where are they going to stay? You know, do they stay at our house? All right. And if they do, what precedents are we setting? You know, because we still have this young daughter who was maybe 12 at the time. You know, or should we get an apartment not far from home so that they've got the freedom to be there? You know, and we had some differences of opinion with my wife around that. But at the end, we agreed that it would not be setting a good precedence. There are certain values that we have as Africans, you know, and we need to make sure that we stick to those. We create a friendly environment. They can visit, stay until whatever, but the idea of them sharing a bedroom under our roof, you know, next door to the sister, you know, we're worrying about the oohs and the ahs that may happen, you know. So we felt, you know, it's better they stay at an apartment, but we embrace, we make her feel at home, but just that part. So the point I'm trying to say is we embrace the choice of our child and support the relationship as much as we can until it runs its natural course. And yeah, it was quite interesting. And I had to become their chauffeur in Cape Town for most of that December, you know. So whilst my daughter and wife were at the hotel, I'm driving them to Cape Point and whatever. And I'm thinking, would my dad have done this if it was me? Surely not, you know. But yeah, these are the
No,
times.
but remember, Fundi, remember, you may not remember. I think it was 1974, right? That was, you were very young then. 1974. Our sister, our eldest sister, Sis Mary, she was at the time, she was practicing, she was a nurse in King Edward Hospital in Durban. She came back home, guess with who? With a boyfriend. And the boyfriend was an Indian boyfriend. And coming to where in the rural areas, you know, where we are in Tabase, you know, and to me that said something about our parents and how open they were about things like that, and the fact that you're saying that you hate racism. I hate racism the same way. Tribalism is the same, you know. But I take it back to the environment under which we grew up. Yeah, all the values where there was so much openness, you know. Yeah. But let's now cut it, Fundi. They were left with a few minutes. You spend a lot of time addressing what I would call social responsibility. You know, in Tabase, the clinics there, you've done a lot. You are supporting students. helping them with crowdfunding, helping them to go to university. Some of them you're paying them yourself. You're walking the Chief Albert Tuli walk. Doing at Mteto Hospital recently, you went there, you donated PPE, and etc. There's so many things that you do. Why do you do that? What does it mean to you, the giving part?
Look, Mteza, I think one of the things, one always has to go back to how were we grown up? I mean, how did our parents grow us up? All right, as kids, and we had a mother who was very generous in many ways, generous with her time, generous with her money, and generous in terms of effort, and in fact, if you look at her clan name, Umajola, when one does Oqengeba and Dunagazi and all of that, there's a part that says, Mfazi onebele elite, elinelisa, people on the other side of the river. Now, basically, she was somebody who, with her breasts, did not only feed us as her kids, but fed the kids from the first wife of my dad, fed the kids from the extended family on both sides, fed kids from around the community, So one picked that up from those, early days. Yes, as a student, maybe you don't spend much time, you don't show that, but as one was starting to grow up, the issue of, I'll say, other people talk about an altruistic, personality. I think all of us at home, including yourself, we have that, that unselfish, concern for other people, and we do things, in terms of helping them, because we feel like doing it, not obligated, to doing it. So that we got it from then. So for me, I really feel, there's a lot of research that's been done around what drives, that, philanthropy, that altruistic, kind of behavior. And some of the research that's coming out is that, when you do that, the body, the brain releases certain chemicals that give you a high, that give you a feeling, of having a purpose, you better off, and you make a difference to those who are less, fortunate than you. So for me, both from an individual point of view as an individual, but also the company that I lead, we are involved in a lot of, philanthropic type of work. Even today, I spent 3 hours in Benoni with the Albinism Society of South Africa as a follow-up to an interview I did on the 5th of September. And the dermatologist that I interviewed actually linked up with a guest I had brought in who was living with albinism. And today they were giving, creams and sunscreens to people who are living with albinism. And to see young kids, 2 years old, 4 years old, who don't have access, to sunscreens, and with that kind of exposure are likely to have skins burnt and cancers later in life. To see them receiving these things, from this dermatologist through the Dr. Fundi platform, it brought, so I got that high. So for me, I feel it makes me feel good to make a difference to another person, whether it is monetary, whether it is my time. Today it was my time, or whether it is certain efforts. I've, like you said, crowdfunded for some kid at WITS, for engineering, mining engineering. I've got a kid from my village, that, I've facilitated that she gets to a university in the Eastern Cape. We do the work with Albert Lutuli in the company every year. We didn't have it this year because of COVID-19. We've done some work with the Zoleka Mandela Foundation around breast cancer, provide work jobs for people to get work experience. I teach so many people at work and beyond. I mentor people, I coach people. So really, Mteto, I think it's really aligned to a realization that whatever blessings or gifts or talents you have, they must be of benefit to the next human being. And for me, it makes me sleep nice at night to know that I do that. And I do that not because, I expect anything in return. What some people would talk about reverse altruism, where I'm doing this because I want you at a certain point to actually pay back, in kind or whatever other way. So, but it's really part of the values that we were taught at home. And it's something that I will continue to do for as long as I have the ability.
Thank you, Futs. That was well put. Thank you for those kind words, those words. To conclude, I think this is now where we need to conclude. It would be nice to conclude after what you've just said. What is your purpose? Why are you here in this life? Why did your soul choose the parents that it chose? Why?
Well, Mteto, up until age of 33, I really did not know what my purpose on earth was. I was cruising, life was easy, I was passing, I was basically anything I wanted I could get, and so I didn't see a need to dig deep or for anything. But life does sometimes present, certain situations that force you to actually get to know who Fundile is. Why is Fundile here on earth? What are Fundile's values from where he comes from? So that going forward, whoever I meet, I sift using those values, and who is likely to add value to my journey going forward, and who's likely to keep me, and not advance me. And so, Mteto, 98, 99, especially 99, when I was sitting for 6 months, recovering from major depression and stuff, I spent a lot of time, motivational books, Bible and everything, trying to get a sense of why am I here? And my reason to be here on earth is to contribute to the upliftment of the quality of life of other human beings through health interventions, right? So that's all. So you will never hear me talking about mining, banking, and all of those things, because I believe my soul chose my mother for the entrepreneurial, skills and environment that I got from her. And my soul chose my dad because of the scientific brain that he had, the teaching ability that he has, such that I'm able now, age 53, to combine the best of both worlds to actually give me an edge, to be able to combine these, to be one of those unique people in South Africa who is solid in medicine, yet also very deep and solid as a business leader, as an entrepreneur. So had I not got that, nurturing environment from both parties, I don't think I would have been able to execute on my mission here on earth, which is really around improving the quality of lives of other human beings through health interventions.
Thank you, Futs. Thank you so much. Let me wrap up by saying that me now representing the rest of the family, in particular Mteto Nyati, Pelokazi Mteto Nyati, and myself, we are so proud of you. And
why you didn't mention your full names when you mentioned the full names of the others?
Because you chose to mention my full name in my book, so
Yeah.
Okay, Mteto Silumko Nzuvukile Nyati. That's me. Yeah. We are very, very proud of the work that you do. We are proud of having been born in the same family as you. And you should always know that we have your back, and we know that you have ours. You are nowhere close to realizing your full potential. You must keep going, keep going. You are different. You are not like me. You are loudmouth.
Yes.
Continue to be that loudmouth person you are, because that's who you are. Continue to be yourself, because in that space, nobody can imitate you. Nobody can ever compete with you. We love you, and we want you to make sure that you look after those beautiful souls that are with you. That is Lindy, Ubushle, and Afika. Continue to do that. I've just looked at some of the comments on Facebook here, and I see that because you continue to talk about your age of being 53, they refer to me as Babu Nyati. And so from Babu Nyati, you should know that Babu Nyati is saying, continue, we are proud of you, Belle. Let's close now. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Mteto. Thank you. I appreciate you putting time aside. You are a very busy man. We haven't seen each other, real face-to-face, not virtual, since before COVID, yet we stay about 5 kilometers apart. We're looking forward to a day where the risk of COVID is minimal, so that we can resume our monthly, catch-ups. But thank you very much, Mteto, and thank you to Mazozo as well for allowing you. I'm saying allowing you, because it's your family time.
I always have to get permission from.
Yes, for allowing you to actually, sit and try and extract something out of this, younger brother of yours. So thank you very much, Mteto. I appreciate you, and appreciate Mazozo, Anda, and generally your wisdom. I told people on Wednesday that growing up, following your footsteps, has always been a challenge, but a good challenge, because it forced me to step up all the time, and so continue leading the way, showing the way, going all the way with us, and also helping us where we have not gone, the way things, are supposed to. To have you as my big brother is actually, a blessing, and continue being the person you are, different, like you said, but an inspirational person nevertheless. Yeah.
Okay, all the best, Foods. Bye-bye.
All right, Jeza. Sharp. Bye.